we're going into today. So for the power moment today, it's actually the consultative selling and leading with stories. Who in here feels like they're a pretty good storyteller? No one?
Jen has the story. Yeah, we're scared.
You guys are, none of you are a good storyteller. Well, then we got to fix that because that helps you become a better salesperson. Fair. I love it. All right, do it a lot, but not good at it. Okay, well, hopefully a couple things in here help you improve that even just a couple percent, right? Because Jason Abrams would say, we're not in the sales business, we're in the decision-making business, right? We're here to help clients make decisions and go through and have those conversations with them in a consultative manner, right? So here's kind of the thought for you. And is there any story that you tell in your life that you are like, you tell it and you're like, man, people remember that story about me, right? Okay, here's kind of what makes stories work well. One, we have great stories connect and engage and they describe and they sell. They help you move that bar. Two, stories let the listeners experience the situation with you, and it's immersive, right? And three, they help make points without sounding pointed. I know, I got a chuckle from that one, right? A way to guide without pushing.
That's actually why we use the feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
Like, I understand when you say, I feel you. What I found is, and others have felt this way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's actually one of the scripts that we're going to go through. So, good job.
Carry on.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to go through some of this part really quick, because just for time. But there's some amazing storytellers that have been in our history, right? You have Jesus Christ. You have Abraham Lincoln, Steve Jobs, and they each have different things. I'm not going to dive into each of them. Winston Churchill, right, with what his stories were. You have Maya Algan, and then you have Maya Angelou, thank you. Martin Luther King Jr., right? And I was going to dive in a little bit because each of them have a certain thing that they were really good at telling their story to help people in that way, right? So here's the power of storytelling, because a story makes a point without sounding pointed. We already kind of mentioned that, right? The great consultants are essentially storytellers. They guide you through the process, right? And help you be there along the way, giving you the guidance and the stories to help you understand what's going on. So the 3 F's, right? This is fantastic. This is one of the things that we teach is feel, felt, and found. I understand how you feel, right? I or someone else has felt the same way, right? Found, here's what I found or learned in telling that story. Going through and using this framework to have a story, to introduce it, to show what has happened and have that conversation. I, of course, love then throwing in some Phil Jones and asking questions like, how would you feel if blank, blank, blank? You know, I mean, just imagine that this, and this, right? Depending on what the story is. So that framework will help you structure things. And what I wanted to do for this is, okay, what are the times that we could use this, right? 1 is objections. 2, emotional blocks, things that come up and helping them get through those. 3, it's helping building belief in what your value is. Talking about a story that's happened or what's going in that way, right? So I want to take a little bit of time. We have a lot of powerhouses in here who close a lot of deals and have experiences. So I want to have us take some time to build up that story bank, because in reality, one of the things is we can use stories that are our own, or we can use borrowed stories, right? And it works just as well, right? Having it where you talk about a coworker that just had this happen or whatever. It is a way to then, again, paint a story and help you move that progress in that part. So the first couple, I'm going to share 2 to get your mind going, and then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different aspects. And I kind of just want to hear a few. We'll have to, of course, keep them to short stories, so we're not doing novels while I pass around the mic. At the same time, I want to hear some stories so you guys can build that rapport, like build your story bank up even more. And then also, like, let's continue to share the stories of what happens so that we have those amongst all of us, right? This one I love. It's Gary Keller's story that he likes to talk about. It's the story that him and his wife always were looking at this property. It was a good deal. They kept on driving by it, and they're like, okay, this one's going to work. And then right when they were like, hey, maybe let's do something, it went under contract, right? Who in here has had a buyer be reluctant on putting in an offer and lost the deal? Okay, just a few of you, right? Great story. A lot depends on what it is, right? But you can then use that story to prove a point, right? So when it's the right deal, move fast. Another one that he has is he was going through, and this is to build his okay, what his value is and who he is. One of the couples he was helping out saw a sign in the yard, but it wasn't even on market yet. He woke up the next morning, drove to the property, sat there, knocked on the door to get in touch with the seller, and stayed there until he could get his clients in. And they got it under contract, right? So again, be proactive, be prepared, and the opportunities will appear. Showing up in that right way, kind of showing what you've done, right? So everything you do becomes a story to prove a point. So hopefully we're doing the right things and it proves good points, right? Or a horrible example that we can use, right? Use your own life, your clients' wins and losses as your story bank. I would, of course, recommend not using so-and-so's name, right? At the same time, showcasing and building these stories is a good way to have this happen. So here's some options. And I kind of just wanted to take a second. I know we're going to be a little bit over time, but I wanted to, there's a lot of powerhouses in this room who've had and closed a lot of deals. So here's a handful of different ones. And I kind of want to hear some of the stories that you use, that you've used, because it's in your story bank so that other people can hear, and we can make sure that we're adding more stories to our story bank. So who has one? Of course, I'll pass this around for the people on Zoom. Who has one that they'd want to share? Yeah, Nate?
I've used this one several times because I bought I've bought and sold homes in other states, but even cabins in Utah that I sold that I own personally that I didn't list. So it's just that commissionectomy when we're trying to get a client to decide whether to pay a buyer agent or not, then you can just say, look, I just barely listed my cabin and I don't want it to sit on the market forever and I want other people to see it. So I've always offered a commission, even being an agent that could list it myself. I've hired an agent that's professional that has marketed it, and I've offered a commission to the buyer agent as well. So it's good when you put yourself in their shoes. Like I know what it's like to want to say that commission, but if you really want to sell it,
Fantastic.
so it's a lot easier when you've done it yourself.
Yeah, that one's an easier one to use when you use yourself. But you can also now say, hey, I have an agent in the office, who he's sold multiple properties in other states, and he always uses an agent, right? Again, how do you use a story and what do you use?
I've had something similar that when I moved here from Texas, I was a licensed agent in Texas. And so I thought I could just represent myself. And I've used that story several times because had I used an agent to help me with a lot, we ended up afterwards having to pay about $10,000 to rebuild a retaining wall that I didn't know anything about the history of the neighborhood and all of that, even though I'd done my due diligence. So I use that all the time for people who are like, hey, I can represent myself. I'm like, listen, this is my story.
I love it. Good. What other stories?
So I work with a few buyers. We might work with buyers here. And they signed a buyer broker agreement with me. I'm their exclusive representative. When we wrote a contract for a home, the seller refused to pay my compensation on their behalf. My buyers walked. They said, no. When we sold our house, we wanted that agent to also be compensated by this. We compensated both sides. We want that to happen for you too. We're happy to pay you out of our pocket, but that's not the point. The point is there's an opportunity for them to compensate you on our behalf. They walked away, and it ended up being a blessing in disguise because they found an even better house. But they were like, no. We agreed that you're getting compensated, and I was willing to drop my commission to help. We did a counter offer. I'm like, okay, they won't do the whole 3 apples or whatever we're doing now. So let's offer 2.5 apples, and they just were dead set on not paying any sort of buyer compensation, and the buyers ended up winning in the end.
Awesome. Okay, a good story that you can not only tell while you're helping do that, right? And you can, of course, this is why I wanted to have this, is what are some other stories? We'll get a couple more.
I'm gonna have, this is a fun one. You guys, what I'm bringing up, emotional blocks, right? I get to use this one with my clients all the time because in Tarzan, how many of you remember the part they're playing drums and the elephant gets sick and says, "I'm sick of your emotional constipation." Okay, and I'll bring that up as, hey, you know, sometimes emotionally we get blocked up. We start to let emotions dictate our reality. Keep an even thing when it comes to loans. I'm going to be asking you certain questions. Just remember, I'm not asking because no reason to get emotional. Just stay with me. Don't get emotionally constipated on this. Just stay calm. We'll get through it together. Emotional constipation.
Love it. Okay, one more, and then we'll wrap up. All right. So the reason why, like, I wanted to kind of bring this up because it's okay. What is your story bank? What are the stories that you have that you can use at different times to help you get there? And how do we improve upon those? Right? Those 3 F's, right, will definitely help you get there in kind of that way. And then going through that process in that way to make sure that you're guiding your clients and helping them in those ways by asking better questions, doing better stories, right? Helping them in that way to come and meet them where they're at, right? So last thing, right? Stories are most powerful when the clients are resistant, uncertain, or disconnected. That's when facts push away, but stories pull them closer. Okay, I appreciate you guys. So thanks for coming today.